Welcome everyone. This is a Python tutorial where I'm going to teach you how to write unit tests in Python. The tool of choice that I'll be using is pytest, so you feel free to use whichever tool you prefer. Um, I found an easy question, or rather, task on the internet. It was about creating a bank account and creating a few methods for it. And what I'll be doing is incorporating tests into this particular problem and just showing you how to think through your problem and how to create unit tests for this. So let's get right into it. It says create a class bank account, create a constructor that has a property balance, create a method deposit, a method withdraw. You should return an invalid transaction if the amount you're trying to withdraw is greater than the balance. And finally, you need to create a class called minimum balance account that is a subclass of your bank account. So we can get straight into it. Let me start by creating the test file. So we'll just call it test bank account. We prefix it using the word test so that your testing tool or testing framework can be able to differentiate between your test files and the actual files that contain your code. So the first thing we'll import is the unit tests, and then from there we can create our first class. So we can just name it class account balance test cases, because this is the class that will contain our different test cases. So it's the unit test case. As you can see, that's a class whose instances are single test cases. All right. So we'll just do a setup. So right there, and we'll so what we're doing here is creating an instance of our bank account class, and we haven't created this yet, and that's what I'm going to do next, because this is going to be inside our code, our main code that we want to test. So sorry, not a new folder. So I'll create a new file which will contain the code. So bank account.py, and let me just set up the class now. So it'll be class bank account. Send the object there, and let's create a constructor for this. And we'll say that our bank account will always be initialized with a balance of about 3,000 shillings. And so we'll do the the balance equals to balance. All right, we're okay till there. So this is an instance of this class that we have created right here that has the balance 3,000. So when we initialize it here, this self.account yangu will have the value, a balance of 3,000. So till there, let's try running the test and see what happens. So it will be py, as I told you earlier, I'll be using pytest, and as you can see, it says no tests were run. Cool, because it collected 0 items. That's okay. So we'll go back here, and the first test case I want to create is for testing the balance. So we'll just create the first test case. Then now is when the assert methods come in. So we want to assert, so it'll be self.assert equal the instance of the class that we pass through here. So it will be, we're equating self dot account yangu, and we know its value is 3000, so we'll put in the value here 3000, and then finally we can put in a message. So in case the test fails, we can know exactly what the error is by making this more descriptive. That's why we pass in this message parameter. So it will be account, let's say account balance invalid. All right, so as you can see here, let's go through this right quick. We are starting that the value of balance, actually there's something that I missed. I didn't pass in the balance. There we go. So we are starting that the value of the parameter balance in the instance of our bank account class is equal to this value, 3000. If it's not, the test should fail. If they're equal, the test should pass. So we can just go and run the test right now. So I go back to my terminal and I run pytest test account.py, and it fails. Why does it fail? It says name error, global bank account is not defined. That's correct because we haven't imported this yet. So we'll go back here and then we say import, no, actually from our bank account file that contains our class, we want to import bank account. So now this error, it wasn't finding this particular class. So if we run, so let's run this now. Let's run the test. And it still breaks. It's saying def init. I see that. That was an error on my part. Put in that semicolon there. So let's run it again. And now it shows that it passed. The test passed, meaning that this value here of balance that we set as a parameter in our bank account class, when we compare it with the value that we pass here, the test passes. If it was, let's say, if the value was different, if we put in a value of 4000 here and we try and run the test, it should fail and it gives you an assertion error, telling you that there's an assertion error on line number 10, I believe that it is, and the message is account balance invalid. And as you can see here, it's an F showing that it failed. When it passes, it gives you a dot. And also the colors can guide you because this is green, this is red. So that's a bit, it helps you, especially by showing you the errors and the line where to find the error. It helps you fix your test or find problems in your code that you can fix much quickly. So I'll put this back. So we're done with our first test case. According to the question, we need to create a method for the deposit, so we can go to that next. And it takes in cash deposit and updates the balance appropriately. So let's create the second test case. We'll call it test deposit. And then, similar to what we did here, we'll do self.account yangu, which is an instance of our class. But when we think about it, we'll need a method called deposit. So we will create this method. I haven't created it. So it will be self.account yangu.deposit. And let's say we want to deposit in 4,000 Kenya shilling, 4,000 shillings into the account. So what we'll want to do is we'll do self dot assert equal again. Which will be, now we'll be comparing self dot account yangu dot the balance, because you know when you deposit this particular amount to the balance that we already have in our bank account, the balance that we have is 3,000. So just keep that in mind. 4,000 plus 3,000 should give us a value of 7,000. That should be the new balance in our account. And we can pass in the message parameter. So in case the test fails, we can know exactly what the issue is. So we can say deposit method inaccurate. So in case the tests fail, you know that this particular method that we're going to create in a minute, in a bit, is the issue, that deposit method is inaccurate. So at least till there we're okay. Let's try and run the test and see what happens. Yeah. So it's telling you an attribute error, no attribute called deposit, because we haven't created this deposit method yet. So that's fine. So you can see our first test passed, the second one failed. As you can see, the dot and the F. So let's jump into it and create that particular method. So let's create the deposit method. So deposit. So we'll pass in another parameter called amount, because that's the amount that we will be depositing into the account. So we'll just do self.balance, because that will contain the balance we already have. And then what we want to do is add the amount to that particular balance. Then we return self.balance, which will contain the new balance. So one thing I'd like to point out is in this particular test case, the return value, the value that we're returning here. So return self.balance, this right here, the value that we're returning, which should be 7,000, is this value right here. So the self.account.balance, we're asserting that the balance that we have, that we're returning, is equivalent to 7,000 in our case, since we're depositing 4,000. So let's just confirm that right now. Screen's a bit messy. Let me just clear that. So if I run the test, it should pass. So you see 2 dots and the 2 tests passed, meaning that the amount that we added here, that we deposited 4,000 plus the balance that we had in our bank account, that is 3,000, should give us 7,000. So if let me just mess around with this and see what happens. If I put in a different value for balance, the test will fail. And you see it's saying it's an assertion error on line 14, and the deposit method is inaccurate. Because I deposited 4,000 and there was a balance of 3,000, it shouldn't give me 17,000. It should give me 7,000. So I'll just correct that again, run the test, and it should pass. So it shows you that this particular function is working well. The tests are passed, and the functionality, or rather, yeah, the code that we typed in is working well. So let's go, before we define that, let me just create the test case for the next one, which is the withdraw right here. So we're creating a method withdraw that takes cash withdrawal and updates the balance accordingly. And if the amount is greater than, if the amount we're trying to withdraw is greater than the balance, it should return an invalid transaction. So that's okay. So let's create the test case. So it will be test, test withdraw. So now I will set up the self.account.yangu.withdraw. As we did previously, we haven't created this method yet, so we'll create it. And let's say we want to withdraw a value of 500. All right, so now we want to assert self.assert So we're asserting that the balance after we've withdrawn 500 should be equal to the value we had in our account minus the withdrawal we've done. So the value should be 2,500. And we can pass in the message parameter again. So it will be like withdraw method inaccurate. All right, so let's go and create the method for that. So we'll call this withdraw self amount. All right, so that's the amount that we'll be withdrawing. So it will be self dot balance to amount. Then we return self dot balance. So what's happening here is we're deducting this amount from the balance that's currently in the account, the bank account itself, and then returning the new balance. So if we test this, it should work. Yep, the 3 tests have passed. But the only problem with this test is that the problem with this method as it stands right now is that you're able to withdraw an amount that's larger than the balance that is currently in here. And that's why there's this extra part that says if the amount is greater than the balance, we should return an invalid transaction. So let's implement that right now. We'll create a test case for this. Let's do it real quick. So we're testing an invalid, let's call it invalid transaction. So this is to handle a particular case where you're trying to withdraw an amount that's larger than the balance that is currently in the account. So we'll assert self. We'll use the assert equal method, and then it will be self dot count yangu dot balance, or rather dot withdraw, and let's pass in a value like 6,000 because we currently have 3,000 in our account, and then it will be invalid transaction because that's what we want to return. And then yeah, we'll pass through the message again. Oops, sorry, which is invalid transaction. All right, so we have our test case there. We are asserting that this particular amount that we want to withdraw, which is 6,000, should give us an invalid transaction because this amount is greater than what we have as the balance in our account. So let's create the functionality for that. So what we're going to do, we're going to use if else. So if self balance is greater than or equal to the amount we're trying to withdraw, we should deduct that amount, else what we want to return, sorry about that, what we want to return is invalid transaction. So let's test this and see whether it works. Just clear my screen again. Yep, the test passed. So as of now we have 4 different test cases. So one was for testing the balance, second was for testing the deposit, third was for testing the withdrawal, and the fourth test case was for the condition where we don't want the amount we're withdrawing to be larger than the balance. So it should return invalid transaction. I think if we change this, the return statement, which is supposed to be the same as this, the test should fail. Let's just confirm that. Yep, it failed. Because what we're returning, invalid transactions, is not the same as this one here in our test, which is invalid transaction. And you can see it's telling you that it's assertion error line number 21, which is this here. So what is being returned is not the same as what is in our withdraw statement, what is being returned by our withdraw method, which is this. So if I correct this, it should be okay. I'll run it one last time and we're good. So 4 tests have passed. So finally, the last part of this is creating a subclass of the bank account class, which we call the minimum balance account. So this test case will be a bit different. So we'll create it here. We'll call it test subclass. So what we're doing, we want to test that the class minimum balance account is a subclass of balance account. So that's what we're doing right here. You'll realize we haven't created that minimum balance account class yet, so I'll create it in a bit. So it will be assert equal, not sequence equal, assert equal self dot account yangu. Oh no, I got that wrong. So it will be assert true. Actually, we're asserting that that is true. So it's assert true is subclass, as you can see here, is subclass. As you can see here, we are returning whether C, what we're passing through here, is a subclass or a derived class of B. So that's what this does. So is subclass, so we'll pass in the minimum balance account, which we haven't created yet. We want to check whether this is a subclass of our bank account class, which we already have. And after that, we'll just pass in a message that says, in case it's not a true subclass, we'll just say not true subclass of balance account. Feel like there's something. Okay, it's this bracket right here. So we need to create this and create this subclass of bank account, which we will do right here. Oh, sorry about that. So class minimum bank account class, and since it's a subclass, we'll pass in bank account there. Then we'll just initialize it. And be self, and possibly you can pass in a parameter called minimum. And then we'll just say self dot minimum equals to minimum. I could give this a value maybe of 1000. We won't use this right now. This is just the subclass we are creating and checking and creating a test to check whether this particular class is a subclass of this class right here. So let's run the test and see whether it works. All right, it's saying error bank account is not defined. That is in our bank account this. All right, so let's go back. Yeah, bank account is here, so it's our test that's failing, and I know why. It's because we haven't imported the minimum balance account. There we go. So let's try and run this again. Error, bank account is not defined. All right, bank account. So it's line 1, line 6. Let me just debug this real quick. All right. Oh yeah, that's it. Indentation. Yeah, so you really need to pay attention to those. So I think now it should be okay. One last time. Yep. 5 passed. So in case we change the name of this, let's say it'll fail because this account D is not the same as this right here. So yep, that's it for creating tests in Python. So feel free to think about other edge cases that I might not have covered in this one. I'll create a second tutorial after this, which is a bit more complex. It's a bit more complex than this, so look out for that, and hope this gave you a better understanding into creating unit tests, how to make them pass, how to create the functionality to make them pass. Yeah, catch you next time.